spot right now.
Yeah.
The allergies are real.
Okay. I need to turn that down. Okay, we are live now.
Okay.
Yay,
All right. Are you ready to go, Rowan?
we did it. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Can we start off with having you introduce yourself and give us a little background on the incident from your point of view?
Yeah, sure. So my mama named me Carly, and that's probably the name people Google to find me. I changed it like a few years ago because Rowan means fiery little one. Cute, right? Um, but yeah, I was count number 55 of attempted murder in the Aurora Theater shooting case. I was one of the first people out. And of course, being one of the first people that moved, I got hit pretty bad with a lot of bird shot from, the first shotgun. Which luckily I got hit with the first canister of tear gas because I knew what it smelled like, and lucky me, I guess. That's kind of was my cue to leave immediately. I don't. It's still kind of a blur. I recounted the incident like a million times, and it's still like some of it's a little foggy because it was just that fight or flight taking over, and I'm grateful that I'm still here, and the staff at Denver Health took really good care of me, and then I was having trouble a few years later. A couple of years later, I realized like, oh my God, I can't pay my bills. I don't know what to do, and I had these birdshot pellets that I was like just saving because I thought maybe I'd make some profound work of art with them, which I guess in the end I did. In a way, we can talk about that later, the film. But yeah, I decided, some weirdo on the internet's going to buy these. Why not? I I did some Google searching and found this weirdo in Florida, and all of a sudden there's like lots and lots of articles online. Everyone in the world seems to know about me selling my birdshot pellets on the internet, and fast forward to a few years later, and that's how I kind of met you, Andrew. So now I'm here.
By the way, I wish I was that weirdo that you would have sold them to at first, but I know we didn't know
Me
each other
too,
back then.
because that was a headache.
Right. Yeah, I can only imagine.
I wish it was you.
So I know you talked a little bit about the incident that which unfolded at your feet, literally. But do you remember the feeling you had like when it first happened, when you first walked in the theater? Did you think like, oh, this is some dude or like some like dude like a dude like shining a flashlight coming through? Because you know how they do that in movies, they walk down the
Mhm.
aisles and all that. Like, what did you think of him at first? Did you think he was just some random person walking in? Like, you had no idea that he was going to come in and shoot up the place?
Yeah, it was weird because I mean, the theater was so packed, and it was like overwhelmingly packed, and I was like, oh my God, we have to sit at the end, or else if I have to get up to pee and climb over all these people, thank God I did, right? But yeah, when he came in, it wasn't like he burst through the door. Like, I mean, you heard all the sensationalized stories about it. Someone was like, he was trying to be the Joker. I'm like, he never used the J word, and the guy didn't burst in, and he didn't like either sneak in either. It was very like nonchalant, kind of like, I'm here. And I think that we thought it was some kind of publicity stunt because when we heard the first can of tear gas hissing, it was kind of like, what the fuck is that? Like we thought maybe it was I don't know, people do t-shirt tosses or something. Like, I mean, you wouldn't in that situation process that someone's in there with like real guns and like riot gear and swishy pants ready to unload on everybody. So yeah, the way that he kind of just nonchalantly walked in, like I didn't think it was like an usher or whatever, like an employee, but maybe a publicity thing because it's The Dark Knight Rises. It's a huge deal, right? So the way that he just kind of sauntered in, we were like, what is that? You know?
Right. Yeah, I can only imagine how terrifying that was and how weird it was at first. Like you said, I mean, there's promos all the time at movie theaters, like giveaways and stuff like that. So I can only imagine how uneasy people felt at first with somebody walking in the middle of a movie.
We were honestly annoyed too, because I was like, we're trying to watch the movie. Like, could you guys have done this like before or after? Why did this have to happen in the middle of the movie? Like the movie wasn't stopping, it wasn't pausing. So we were like, because you've done this like any time but now, you know?
Right, right. So, and feel free to say no to any questions I ask you if it like is re-traumatizing or anything like that. But
Yeah, if
do you
there's
remember
one
what
that I don't want to answer, I'll just be like, "Hey, next one," you know? No
okay,
big deal.
all right. Do you remember what the sound was like there? Like when people were like screaming and shouting, and do you remember that vividly?
No, because I was out so quickly that I don't even remember sounds from the other people really. It was kinda just me, you know? But for some reason, like, I still really hate fireworks. Like, I can go to, like, you know, the big fireworks displays or whatever, but when I hear a firework in the neighborhood, it's weird because I mean, like I said, like, you don't process, I guess, like, if I feel like no normal person processes, like, I'm being shot at, right? Like, your brain tells you it's this, it's that, like, and my brain kind of processed it as fireworks, and I was like, "Oh my god, like, some freaking little terrorist is lighting off fireworks in the movie theater," you know, that's what I was hearing while I was running out. Like, all I remember is those popping sounds. And then I got, like, out of the actual, like, theater and into the lobby, and I was like I still had no idea what was going on. There were 2 other kids running, and I was like, "Okay, let's just get" my brain was like, "Get to car," you know, that was it, "Get to the car," and, you know, that's all I remember really is just the popping noises, dropping my purse. I grabbed my purse, I don't know. I think Chris actually carried his bottle of Mountain Dew the entire way to the car. So it's those little things you remember, right? But like for some reason, don't remember other people's reactions, other people moving. I think just most people didn't know what was happening, you know?
Did he say anything or like shout anything before shooting or while shooting?
Not that I remember. It was literally just like the can of tear gas, and then that was it. Like a dude just walks in real nonchalantly. Like I hear this hissing sound, and then like some can of something is flying towards me, and then it falls at my feet. And I was like, I remember like bending down to sniff, like what I remember like Chris saying, like, what is that? And I just like quietly, I remember myself quietly saying tear gas, and then all of a sudden we were moving. But it was like I got up and I remember something pushed me back in my seat, and it actually took me a few years of like recounting it to realize like, oh, that was the first shot. Was I got up, so of course I had to be the first one to move, right? And like whatever pushed me back, that was the first shot, and then getting up and running, you know.
So you said you made it to the car. Did you drive yourself and your boyfriend to the hospital, or did you wait for EMS to show up?
So Chris actually hadn't been hurt, which was nice. I think he did get grazed with something we found out later, but it was like I don't know. It was just crazy because the guy was on my right side, he was on my right side, and still I took everything somehow. It was almost like everything just went around Chris. Good for him. um, but yeah, it was like he drove. Like I remember we got to the car, and my arm, like all of a sudden, like the pain in my arm started to sink in, and I was like, "Why does my arm hurt?" And I touched it, and my hand was red. And of course, like, you know, the thought process is paint. And then it was like fake blood. And then it was like someone else's blood. And then, like, once it really sunk in, I was like, oh my God, it's my blood. And I still had no idea what happened. So I was like, we need to get to a hospital right away. And like, but neither of us are from Colorado. Like, he was from Michigan. I'm from Ohio. Like, neither of us knew our way around. We were out there so he could go to college and I could, I don't know, smoke pot and play guitar or whatever. And so we, uh, had to like we remember that there was what was it? There was like construction on the way there, and there was like a cop who was kind of, you know, directing traffic. So we like drove to where he was, and we were like, "Where's the nearest hospital?" And he was like, "Oh boy!" Like he saw the shape I was in. Like I didn't know what kind of shape I was in. He did, and he was like, he called an ambulance. And I remember them coming and trying to like assess me. Like I didn't know it was that bad, like what had happened, you know, like I didn't even know I'd been shot till they told me. And they were like, okay, if you can walk, like we got to send you off in the car because we have so many to pick up, you know. And they tried to get me to take a few steps, but my legs just kind of buckled, like they felt like jelly. I didn't realize I got shot in the legs so many times and in the back. And so, yeah, they had to, you know, haul me into the ambulance and then go pick up more people. And then or the hospital in Aurora was already full. So we had to drive all the way to Denver Health, which was one hell of a ride because I had to sit up. Like they put me in a seat because people were more damaged than I was, you know, these kids that were in there with me. So
So there's two questions in the comments, and I guess a comment after a question. Can you remember how long it lasted, or was it slow motion? I saw a double homicide, and it was weird moving fast, but in slow motion.
Wait, I'm confused by the question. Sorry.
Okay, so can you remember how long it lasted, or was it in slow motion?
I don't know how long it lasted because I was out of there so quickly.
All right, and the second question is, did he just stop shooting, or did he run out of ammo?
I have no idea. I imagine I like don't remember what the cop had said at the trials. You know what I mean? Like I think he just unloaded everything, and then I do remember the Aurora's finest saying that I think when they encountered him, he was outside. He still had like a handgun on him or something, and then like a knife, and he was just kind of like hunched over his car or something, like sweating profusely. So like very obviously was the perp, and they were just like, let's just peacefully detain this guy. But yeah, I think he just like unloaded and then just probably sauntered back out, I'm assuming.
Rowyn,
And you
how
were out
many
of there way before the shooting stopped, huh?
I got away like really quick, luckily.
how many times were you shot?
I had 22 birdshot pellets or 22 wounds. So
Okay.
I think there were
And
still like a dozen pellets stuck in me. We got most of them removed, but I still got a few.
wow.
Mhm.
And did you go to the trial?
I
Did you
went to some
testify?
of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to like one of the preliminary kind of hearings because I just wanted to see who shot me. Like I felt like
Yeah.
that kind of gave me a little closure to what happened. And then I didn't go to one of the evidentiary hearings. I actually went to the DA's office, and the assistant DA, she was so great, Lisa. She actually, it was nice to, like, it's not nice to hear the 911 calls and stuff, obviously, from like a small child trying to resuscitate her even smaller cousin, right? But like, it was cathartic, I guess, to be able to sit there in a kind of more quiet, controlled environment and like get that closure of seeing this stuff and hearing this stuff. And then I did have to testify. I didn't want to. I really, really didn't want to. I was like, great, like let's relive this horror again, right? But I actually felt so relieved after I did. I was surprised. Like at first I was like, oh, I'm like cooperating with the police and I'm this and like they're making me relive this. They should have just shot him, like whatever. And then yeah, I felt like this burden was lifted off my shoulders after I got to testify and the victim's impact statement, because it was kind of like, I mean, this guy thought he got the final word, but like, look who did.
Did he look at you while you were testifying?
He didn't look at anyone. It was so weird. I remember trying to make eye contact with him like a million times and just he would look around but wouldn't like look anyone in the eye.
Did he give a reason, or was there some type of mental illness going on?
I have no idea. Like
Yeah.
he was smart. He was smart enough to not talk. Like he made sure. I don't remember if anyone else heard him speak, but I didn't hear a single peep from him. It was all his attorneys, which was very, very smart on his part.
So, Amy or Jennifer, do you have anything to ask before we talk about trauma?
Just what's your opinion of him, Rowyn? What is your, like, scary, awkward, weird,
Yeah, I mean, I
all
feel
the
like when I
above?
look at mass shooting cases, it's very like bottom of the barrel true crime, for lack of better words. Like, because these
Hmm.
people are just cowards. You know what I mean? It's not like they got into an up close and personal. Like, I mean, obviously this is going to sound really bad, but it's not like I went after someone and stabbed them and like risked my safety, right? It was kind of like, I'm going to go shoot fish in a barrel. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that like anyone who doesn't see him as just like some weaselly little coward is like fucking crazy. Like,
Absolutely.
it's like
Absolutely.
I mean, you take one look at him and it's just like, oh my God, what a dweeb. I remember he was like trying to scan at one of the evidentiary hearings. We saw video of him trying to scan his Fandango ticket. And it was like, obviously he was probably nervous, but I think it took him like 10 tries something to scan his ticket, and I was like, it's weird because the dude could be so smart, but also like, what an awkward idiot, you know what I mean? So it was like, I mean, I think people who do that kind of stuff, they're just like very cowardly, and I don't think there's. I think we always try to find rationale and stuff that happens, like especially when bad things happen, right? Because like I think that gives us some closure. Like I recently went through a breakup, and I was like, I might have some closure if I confront this guy about X, Y, and Z, but like, would it really give me the closure I want? Like, no. So I've just had to accept, like, maybe these are just shitty people. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they just suck, you know?
Makes sense. I think, Andrew, if
So
you want to go ahead, I'll think of
okay.
more questions as you
I'm
go.
trying to get logged into TikTok on my computer so I can see if there's any comments that come up. So just
I'm watching there.
oh, okay, good.
Okay. So like right after the incident, let's say like a few days or a week after the incident, how did you cope with the trauma, like literally as fresh wounds?
That was really hard because I do remember like I like so for instance, I forgot. I mean, you know about like all the people harassing me. There was that 7-page article, but it was like I forgot how accessible I was. So like a lot of it was almost like putting out fires that like I used to be the kind of person who felt like everyone else's feelings were my responsibility. So like I immediately logged on to Facebook and was like, hey guys, like I'm okay. You know, like I was not okay. You know, it's like you guys don't have to worry, you know. And like calling off work, that was actually really funny because I was like, you know, she was like, well, you're gonna have to have someone pick up your shift. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, like I dropped my phone on the way out of the theater and da da da. And she was like, oh my God. And you know, the ladies at Macy's sent me flowers. It was cute. But yeah, I think a lot of the next few days was just like literally trying to, I guess, focusing on staying alive. Like I couldn't, like obviously, like I couldn't sleep, but like all I wanted to do was sleep because I was in so much pain. But I was in so much pain that I couldn't sleep, and so it was like, I mean, it was really rough. So I was actually lucky though because you know, I mean, I'm not lucky to have a lot of childhood trauma, but I do. So I already had an appointment scheduled with the therapist. Like I feel like we had just gotten out there, you know, like, like I don't remember if I told you, I think we moved out like less than a year before that. So I had an appointment scheduled with a new therapist already. And I think it was like a few days or maybe like a week or two at most, like that it was my first appointment with her. So I was really fortunate that I already had that scheduled because, you know, it takes so long to get mental health care, especially like it's always like 30 to 90 days before your, you know, first appointment. But you know, it was all kind of a blur. I think the only thing I could really do was just like, you know, tend to my like physical wounds and just hope that I could get some help for the mental wounds too.
So you mentioned being harassed. Were those by like the conspiracy theorists and the MK Ultra conspiracy theorists?
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. Like you know what though, I feel like it just boils down to like there are some really probably damaged worse than me or differently than me people out there who I remember a school teacher just telling me like, dude, I really think all these people just want to fuck him. And I was like, it sounds so crass, but like I think it's true, you know. I mean, you know, like these kind of guys have fangirls and it's creepy, you know.
Weird.
Or just like angry little boys that, you know, like I mean, like, I'm not gonna say that I've never been to a school where I was like, "Man, I really wish this place would just blow up." Like, but I have never wanted to do that, you know? But yeah, it was like I think some of them were conspiracy theorists, but I think some of them were sort of like fans who were hiding behind like a conspiracy theory, you know what I mean? Like, and it was really funny when someone wrote a fake motion pretending to be me. And it was like, sorry, the dogs were going crazy. You can't hear them, right?
It's okay.
No, we can't.
Okay. Good. Greta's got a supersonic bark. She's my baby. But yeah, it was like, you know, the fake motion said something about how I was a prostitute. That was my favorite. And that I let the chief of police or whatever like shoot me and that I was testifying against James Holmes so that he wouldn't arrest me for prostitution, which it like at the time it scared the shit out of me, right? Like this person knows who I am and da da da. But like looking back, it's kind of funny that one because it was just so out there, you know. And I was like, it was funny because the chief of police called me and was like, "Hey, so do you know about this bogus motion?" And I was like, "I've never even met you in person. I don't even know who you are." Like I didn't know who any of these people were that were even mentioned in the motion. Like I was a victim of a heinous crime. Like I'm not a prosecutor. I don't work for the cops. I don't know this stuff, you know. And then yeah, there was just so many comments like James Holmes is a patsy, and um, then I was unaware of like what TMZ Entertainment was, and I went to talk to them, and it was like, you know, someone was like, "Well, what do you think should happen to him?" I'm like, "I don't know. I heard they're bringing back like death by firing squad in some places," and then all of a sudden, it's like shooting survivor from the Aurora Theater calls for death by firing squad for James Holmes, as if like I was some kind of killer or something, you know? like like I went into a movie theater and just indiscriminately fired at a bunch of like men, women, and children, and like, you know what I mean? It was nuts. So yeah, I think it was a good amount were fans, and I think a good amount were conspiracy theorists, and then I think the rest I I think they were just people who were looking for someone to blame who wasn't him, because I think they just couldn't accept that, you know, I just wish I had the privilege of not of being able to deny that someone did something so reprehensible.
Were you ever accused of being a crisis actor?
Oh yeah, oh my God. It was like all over this one girl's Tumblr. She was posting all these creepy photos and like all these links about crisis actors, and I was like, dude, what is wrong with you? She posted my IP address and was like, she's like out here looking for trouble. I'm like, yeah, because I have to look really hard to find all of you. Like I got crisis actor, I got Illuminati, CIA, police, and then oh, my favorite one was reptilian. Someone said I had disappearing tattoos because I posted an old photo of mine on like Tumblr or something. So I am a shape-shifting reptilian from the Andromeda galaxy with disappearing tattoos. So that's absolutely my favorite.
Well, you know, they always say if
Weird.
you want to learn something about yourself, look online.
I learned a lot.
That is wild.
It's people are wild. I mean, I mean to think that someone could do something like that in the first place, right? Like that should have been a cue that maybe there's other people out there who are nuts, but I just didn't know there were that many people, you know? It's just raise your kids, guys. Raise your kids, please.
Yeah. Let's see.
So this happened almost 12 years ago. Exactly. It'll be a month and a day next month, I believe. How was life then versus now? Like, are you able to cope with the trauma better now, or do you just suppress it?
It's a lot better now. I'm really grateful. Like I feel like 12 years ago I was also like a really different person. Like I was like fresh out of the military. Like I had only begun to like go to therapy and stuff. Like I did a little bit of therapy while I was in the Navy actually, and then it wasn't through the Navy, it was through a civilian service. Surprise. In the Navy they just tell you to go talk to the chaplain if you're suicidal. Yay. So I'd gone to the ER and stuff, and you know, spent a few days at a psychiatric hospital, which was just so helpful, you know. And so, you know, but I think we tend to rest on our laurels sometimes, especially when you are raised or like, I mean, that was my first job, right? That was fresh out of high school. So it's an environment that's very like machismo, and like, you know, feelings are girly and girly is bad, right? So like we don't talk about our feelings there. Like we just get pissed and we drink. And so, you know, I feel like I had sort of started getting help, but not really. And so I feel like at the time I had a really, what's the right word? I mean, I'm not surprised that I had such a negative outlook on life because like of all the things that had happened to me up until then. But like I had a really negative outlook on life. And I feel like, you know, what I don't know the date today, but in like 3 days, we'll be celebrating like my 7th year of sobriety. And I have not been high or drunk in 7 years. Like that's crazy.
Good for you.
Like like to if you told me that like when I was 22 years old and like had just gotten shot by some maniac in a theater, you know what I mean? Like I would not have believed you. I probably would have laughed. Like I would have threatened to slap you. Like there's like I would not have believed that because I was like, life sucks. Like I'm just gonna like we had both quit drinking and smoking cigarettes before that happened. I started smoking cigarettes again right after it happened, and then shortly after started drinking again, like after the races. Like alcohol was my big drug of choice, but I was kind of a trash can addict for a while. And I don't know, nowadays it's great. Like I obviously have some days that are worse than others. And it's to me, like mental health care is just like physical health care. Like I don't just show up for acupuncture one time. You know what I mean? Like I have to wake up and do my stretches and like do some body weight exercises. And then I have to go to the chiropractor and do my adjustments. And then we go to do my acupuncture. And then I really need to make an appointment with the primary care doctor. And like, I go see a therapist and I talk to my psychiatrist regularly, and he's really great because we find a good balance between like holistic methods and like actual medication. Like rather than just throwing more pills at me, he's like, maybe you should take a vitamin D supplement since you have an insufficiency. Like that's going to help a lot. And, but I still take my ADHD medication. Whatever. But I think for me, like I just had to really work hard at finding balance, and that's still hard because I like to work. Like I own a pet nanny business and it's a one woman operation basically. And I got into filmmaking and like music was a good outlet for me, but I feel like it really took the back burner for like acting and filmmaking. So maybe I'll be a great crisis actor someday too. But yeah, I feel like like just working on creative stuff and going to therapy and really saying like when I'm not plugged in with like my other people in my 12-step program, like that's when I can feel myself backsliding. Like I'll start getting real squirrely. And I think that's the big chunk of it is just having that support system. It takes a village.
I agree with that. I actually was talking with someone about that last night and told him that I would do a live with him later today because we were talking about with support, you can do essentially anything.
I would love to check that out. There was a shooting in Akron, my hometown, like where I live now. I'm from here, but yeah, there was a shooting not far from my childhood home. Like what was it a few weeks ago? It was like a drive-by at a party. I know it was like gang related because supposedly no one saw anything and couldn't even identify the car. I mean, you know how that goes. But yeah, it was really jarring to hear about because I was like, people shoot each other all the time out here. I hear gunshots all the time. It's gunshots or fireworks. But like a lady came into I picked up a part-time job at a pet supply store and I love it there. It's awesome. But a lady came in and my coworker was like, I don't want to tell her your business, but do you want to talk to her? Because she, I guess, was there and or a bunch of her like cousins and nephews and stuff were there at this peaceful party of like 30 people that got shot up. And, it was kind of comforting, I guess, to be able to, like, I gave her my business card, was like, here's all my info. Like, please call me if you guys need anything. Cause it's about community for me. Like, I told her like, if you guys need, any guidance on like how assistance works or anything like that, like please just call me, or maybe you need an ear to talk to who's been through something similar, So I don't know. I'm really glad that I can be, I guess, like a person that can be part of that village and like help other people who have gone through something that was also really traumatic.
That's amazing. We have a question. Are you able to go to movie theaters now?
Yeah, it's funny because we tried to go see, what was it? Lords of Salem. I was so stoked for that movie to come out. And by the way, I was really disappointed. It's like a background noise movie for me now. But we were so excited. We went to see Lords of Salem, and this lady was acting so nuts in the theater that like I literally had to go get security. Like it wasn't just triggering. Like the lady was just acting like yelling at her boyfriend, started yelling at us when we were like, "Can you please be quiet? The movie's starting." Like no, she was just security had to escort her out. They had to refund us her ticket, and I was like, "Damn, Chris, like can we just go see a movie?" Um, like please. But yeah, it was cool because I think around Christmas we used to always go to the movies on Christmas because we didn't really have a lot of family out there or anything. So we went to see Django Unchained. so I didn't go to the movies as often after that. I don't know if anyone did. Like, I feel like it's still in the back of, like, almost everyone's minds when they go to a movie, like, what if, but I mean, that's always in the back of my mind. So it's like my dad always taught me, like, be vigilant, know where the emergency exits are, and this and that, and sit on the end in case if there's an emergency or you have to pee or whatever. And thank God he did, right? But yeah, I still go to the movies. I actually took myself to the movies sometime last year because I was like, oh, I'm gonna see if I can go to this like 10 p.m. showing of a horror film and not freak out. And I did. It was actually really comforting. Now I'm like, oh, I love taking myself on movie dates. I don't have to be anxious about anyone in my group being anxious about me being anxious because you know how that can snowball. If you start to panic, like, and someone else is panicking, you panic about them panicking about you panicking. So yeah, I got to go to the movies by myself at least once, and I love going to the movies. I feel like it's great because I just don't want to let that guy ruin that for us, And it's okay if people are still scared to go. Like if you go through something like that, maybe they don't want to go back to the movies. But for me, like I'm a filmmaker, and so I'm always kind of giddy about going to the movies. Like sometimes I'm really happy about it.
What kind
Do
of films
you,
are you doing?
What? Sorry.
What kind of films are you doing?
Oh, mostly horror films. Like we shot a couple of shorts like a few years ago. I started working at a haunted house and some guy needed like an extra for something, and that some guy turned out to be I came to him, like we became good friends, and I came to him with an idea January of last year ish. It might not have been January. It was snowing in Ohio, so who knows, right? But yeah, I came to him and said, I have this idea for like the basis of a horror film. And he was like, all right. And like, we just kind of ran with it. And then like a week or two later, he was like, here's a script. And so I've really been like, we just been working our balls off the past couple of years to make this. I think, Andrew, I don't know if you were going to link anything in whenever we share it, but I'll be sharing the page again soon. It should be out like mid to late summer this year. But it's called Cagey, and it's like a horror film about a house that gone wrong. And all the money came out of our pockets. So it was, I played the lead, I produced, I helped write the story, I did this, and the director, like I mean, it was just me and him mostly. Like, I mean, we really kicked butt on that. And um, I don't know if that would have happened if the documentary hadn't happened. A lady from Berlin approached me because she read about me selling my birdshot pellets online, and I was like, "Who is this weirdo messaging me on Etsy?" And it was this wonderful lady named Nora from Berlin. And right now, there's a short making the festival circuit called Murderabilia, and we're hoping the producers are hoping that when enough people see it, it'll get picked up for a feature length because it is supposed to be a portrait film about me, which is really surreal, right? But like, I feel like even documentary making, it's a lot, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, just be yourself because it's a documentary about you. But like, no, I worked really hard. So yeah, we won an award for that at the Short Sweet Film Fest in Cleveland at honorable mention. And between that and horror movies, and like I'm just really into like grindhouse. I like exploitation films, like stuff that's ridiculous and just almost silly, like over the top. So yeah, like mostly horror grindhouse kind of exploitation films, like Thrust we just did a couple years ago with Linnea Quigley and Aaron Brown, and that was a super fun one. But yeah, that's my cup of tea.
Nice.
Speaking about your film Murderabilia, how do you feel as a mass shooting survivor of people collecting Murderabilia, more specifically collecting stuff related to the James Holmes case?
I feel like people ask me that a lot, and I still am kind of like it's a mixed bag of feelings, right? Because I think that on one hand, I mean, I've probably vented to you about this, Dodge, with the, like I have items listed on, I think, Cult Collectibles and stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. You guys deal with the buyers, right? And there have been a couple of buyers who have been really nice people. I consider them kind of like long distance friends almost. Um, they're cool, but like, overall, like it's a lot because at first it was like people are really stoked to help out a survivor who's having trouble keeping a job and paying her bills. And that's really wonderful. But then a lot of people message me under the guise of that, like, oh, I want to buy it directly from you because then all the money goes to you. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, oh my God, I'm still so naive sometimes, and it's because they think they're getting a better deal and they want something related to the trial, and I'm like, God, that's really predatory, but okay. Um, but yeah, I mean, I have a couple Eileen Wuornos pieces, but to me, she's more of a hero than a criminal. I don't know. So I don't know. I feel like people all collect weird stuff. Like, I mean, I didn't even know that the murderabilia thing was such a big, what's the right word? Like, I don't want to say industry, but you know what I mean? I didn't know it was such a big community, such a big hobby for people. But even when I was really young, I remember people being like, I collect World War II memorabilia. And like, to me, I just don't see a difference. Like, it's like you have a Nazi pin sitting on the mantle that, like, because you're collecting a piece of history, like, not because you're glorifying Nazis. Like, you know what I mean? I guess I just don't see a huge difference between like collecting World War II memorabilia and collecting murderabilia because it's all literally, to me, I mean, war is literally murder. It's mass murder, right? So, I mean, to me, it's all kind of murderabilia. So I kind of look at it like that. Like it's just another weird, but it's weird, but it's another piece of history. And some people will glorify it and like, I mean, whatever floats their boat, I guess, their weird boat. But I think overall, it's just another oddity to collect, in my opinion.
Right, and they've actually been collecting murderabilia since the beginning of time, like, I
Hmm.
mean, head like, I mean, dating back to the BC and stuff like that, they would kill people and take their heads and take their skulls and everything like that, so it's
Yeah.
really, I mean, been since the beginning of time if you think about it that way.
I mean, in a way, yeah, totally. Because I mean, I guess if I did kill someone, I'd want to take a shrunken head like a trophy, and maybe wear it. But yeah, like I mean, people did have stuff like that. That was, I think societies have always been, what's the right word? Like I don't want to say violent, but you know what I mean. Like there's always been things about every civilization that seem more or less messed up than others to whoever. It's all a matter of our perspective. I think reality is completely subjective, but yeah, like you said, it's been happening since the dawn of time. Like my mom's got my picture of my great uncle Bob who killed Nazis and his Purple Heart. I'm sure there are people on the other side of that have a picture of their great uncle Bob who did not kill Nazis but was a Nazi, and they probably think he's a hero. And I mean, it's obviously I don't agree with that, but it is just another, I guess, weird thing people collect that people have been collecting for a very, very long time.
So there's 2 comments on YouTube from a guy named Lenny Schmidt, I don't know if you know who he is, but he says, "I'm glad you're okay, Rowan,
Lenny.
and please tell her hi for me."
Oh, no, I love Lenny. He actually, and I'll be auditioning again this year. I had to take a season off. Like, I'm gonna audition at some haunted house this year. I haven't totally figured out because there's one that does like charity work out here, and like that really appeals to me. But I will at least be visiting them. That was the haunted house I was working at where I met the director of KG. Um, and I call him my haunt grandpa because he's just like literally like I was like, I wish Lenny was my grandpa. Like he is the nicest person. Like we all love him. Like if anyone ever said a bad word about Lenny, I would probably punch them in the throat. Like he's just so great, and everyone loves Lenny. So it's very sweet that he tuned in and commented. Thank you, haunt grandpa.
Aw.
So, going back a little bit to the therapy, just one more question about that. So,
Mhm.
what types of therapy were you going through? Obviously, like talking to a therapist, like how are you feeling? How did you feel during this time? Blah 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 blah. Like that's not going to cut it for a mass shooting survivor. Like, can you
Right.
talk about what types of therapy you actually went through that were actually helpful and not a waste of time?
Yes. I think that like at first, like talk therapy is great when you first start. I think that's cool. Like cognitive behavioral therapy is nice. Like it helps you kind of like challenge things that might be irrational. And for someone who's like hallucinating and stuff, right? Like that's good. I think like the first step with her, I mean it sucked because like this lady had never treated someone who had been through that. And so she kind of had to treat it like someone that just got into a horrific car accident. And she was like, okay, so we are going to have you literally write everything out in as much detail as humanly possible, and then we are going to go over it and talk about how we feel about it and how do we cope with these feelings. And that was nice. Like talk therapy is a good, I don't want to say supplement, but it's a good like starting point, right? And I think it's important. And I do that with my psychiatrist. Like sometimes I will just unload on that poor guy. Um, and I'm like, I don't see the therapist for another week. But that was helpful. I think the most helpful form of therapy for me was actually dialectical behavior therapy. I sound like I'm in a cult when I talk about it, which is fine. Like I had read a little bit about like Zen, like Buddhism, and stuff like radical acceptance and blah blah blah. But dialectical behavior therapy was amazing. I went just a few years ago to an IOP for that, and you take little surveys when you start any kind of mental health program or whatever, and it's like your depression scale, your anxiety scale, my dissociation scale, and then I took the assessments at the end of it. It was like several weeks long, and my scores were cut in half, and that was really incredible. So I think there's a lot of like therapeutic things you can do. Like I think spending time with animals gives me purpose. I love making things. I like movies. I love acting because I love scare acting because I'm not really scary. I just love entertaining people. It feels good to enrich a life any way I can, even if it's that like 10-second interaction with someone, right? So yeah, I think like being creative, spending time with animals, like talk therapy is fine. But I think, and working the 12 steps was kind of like another form of cognitive behavioral therapy because we really had to like the worksheets that I did look just like CBT worksheets. And yeah, I think the 12 steps and like DBT were extremely helpful for me. And right now I'm just seeing a counselor for like talk therapy because my last one had left the practice and it took me forever to get in to see a new one. I'm in a different practice. So right now we are kind of talk therapy, getting to know each other, but I'm really looking forward to diving back into those DBT skills because I just think that's been so helpful. I mean, it was like literally invented by this lady, Marsha Linehan, who felt like she was an untreatable patient. So if anyone's listening and you're like, I feel like I'm hopeless and I'm not treatable and like look into dialectical behavior therapy because DBT was literally made for people like you.
Rowan,
Jackie Wilson said, "Love you, girl. Please say hello from me."
Oh, I love Jackie. Actually, we were Navy buds and she was stuck out on a fucking aircraft carrier when they found out about what happened. And I was like, oh no. Like, can you imagine like just being floating in a giant bowl of Fruit Loops and someone's like, hey, by the way, like one of your really good friends that got out last year just got shot. Like, I was like, oh God, I cannot imagine being there and hearing about it.
Yeah, that would be insane. That'd be
Mhm.
tough, especially not having contact with you probably.
Yeah, Jackie's a tough bitch. I love her. Like, she has so much of my respect.
So after the shooting took place, how were your friends and family like accommodating towards you? Were they like, I mean, how did they react?
I mean, gosh, it's like, how would you react? You know what I mean? Like, what would you do? Like that, it's so scary. I was at the hospital and I could not for the life of me figure out my mother's phone number because, like I said, I dropped my phone on the way out. It took Chris forever to find me because they didn't tell him where I was going. And he lost the ambulance, like driving the car. It was a whole thing. But yeah, so I finally find my mom had been a nurse for 35 years. So of course, like the first thing I wanted was like, I want to see my mom. And I finally got a hold of her because I knew like if the hospital called her before I did, I was like, she's gonna freak out. Like, so I had to call her and let her know I was alive. And then actually my dad worked at Akron General for like 26 years as a pharmacy tech. That's where, they both met. And he, I guess like a bunch of people who worked with him were like, you need to go see your kid. Like, so they all literally like put their money together and were like, they sent my mom out first. She came with me to one of the first hearings I went to. She bandaged me up real nice. And, there were reporters and stuff like shoving cameras in our faces on the way out. I was like, oh my God, we should have gotten an escort. Like, you know, um, but it was nice to have my mother there to like tend to my physical wounds and like also be there for me emotionally. And then she came back and then my dad came out to see me. And actually I have godparents that are high school friends of his. Um, like friends since probably actually like middle school or something. they live in Littleton, and the really weird thing is like my uncle Dennis was actually a first responder at Columbine. And so we went out to visit them, and it was actually really comforting, I guess, to just be around family, like people who love me. I think there wasn't much they could do for me. And I think still when I struggle, people are like, what can I do for you? And I'm like, I just feel like knowing that someone cares is really all you could do. I guess it's just having empathy, like getting empathy from someone, not sympathy, like oh, that sucks. Do you want a sandwich? But like empathy, like, hey, like I see you're in this dark hole and I'll sit here with you and we will, we'll just sit and sit with it and hopefully eventually get out of it. But yeah, I guess just having my parents come visit really, really helped me a lot. It was really great to have their support. I think when my dad found out he was working second shift and like my mom came knocking on the bedroom door at like 9 a.m. or something. And my dad literally said, like, someone better be dead. And so, of course, my mom's like, yeah, well, actually, but your daughter's like, okay, I guess, but we need to see her. So, yeah, I just, knowing that my parents cared meant a lot to me. I was, if I didn't have, the support from family, I don't know really how I would have made it through because I felt very alone out in Colorado. I had like my boyfriend, I had my godparents that lived like maybe an hour away and a couple of friends, but still really felt like an oddball.
That's amazing.
Jen, you were trying to chime in a minute ago.
Well, I was just going to make a comment about, trauma. We pretty much all of us have it in some form or another. And I feel like getting therapy and discussing therapy is so important. I think that's it's a great thing. And I also want to know if you attribute your wellness now to your therapy, during all these years.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like I feel like that kind of gave me that foundation. Like for me, like you probably know, like with therapy, it's not really like there's no destination, right? It's not like, I completed this program. Like it's like it's definitely a big journey. And I don't think we ever really finish healing, right? But like I don't know if anyone's ever really healed, but we are always healing. And I think that over the years, like it's just been progress isn't typically linear, but like my last therapist kind of drew this diagram, right, with like a graph, right? There's a line and it's going up, but then there's these little loop-de-loops and stuff, like a heart rate monitor around that line. So it's like, even if progress isn't linear, it's like it's still getting better and better. And I think, yeah, like you said, like having that kind of foundation from before and like starting therapy as quickly as possible, I think that really it's a good thing that I did that instead of putting it off because I think otherwise I would have really been kind of screwed right now.
Yeah, I do feel like therapy, whatever kind of therapy works for, you know, you or whatever, it gives you an outlet to get some of these feelings out. And I wish that people would reach out to therapy more. So I'm glad
Mhm.
you're talking about it out loud.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Like I wish people would do that more often because I think a lot of people like they'll just have one session and like I mean first of all intake session always sucks. Like like if you've been to an intake session it sucks. Like the first one's going to suck. And a lot of people are like, oh, I went to a therapist once and it sucks, so I never went back. And I'm like, but did you try looking for another therapist or doing a couple more sessions with that person? Or like, I feel like people just get discouraged really quickly. So yeah, like you said, I wish people would reach out more because it's, there's help out there. There's, so many therapists out there that you can shop around.
It's
I
absolutely a process.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
also think that people quit because they don't want to know.
Yeah.
They
I
don't
think
want
when
to
you
know
speak it
what's
into
wrong with them.
existence, it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, and the fair, I've been going to counseling for years.
Mhm.
And, the first time you're just going to sit there crying, talking about your story. You haven't even really started therapy yet,
Mhm.
because you're just telling your story. Um, I think it's imperative, really, that especially for someone who's been through what you've been through, to get that help so they can be a whole human.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that not getting therapy, you're selling yourself short. Honestly, I, I, I think therapy is something we should talk about more, actually.
I think so too, because I feel like people are, it's kind of like the way that like people are really apt to talk about, right? Like, I was worried about the documentary because I was like, well, I don't think people really want to focus on a survivor as much as they want to focus on a bad guy, right? But like at the same respect, like I hear people talk openly, especially online and stuff, all the time about like their mental illnesses or disorders or whatever, but like not as many people talk about like what do we do for healing. And I think it's just maybe people like do we just naturally what's the right word? Like gravitate towards focusing on the negative? I don't know, but I just really feel like not as many people talk about the healing journey, right? Like I just wish people talked about it more.
I 100% agree with that. I yes, 100% agree with that. They don't talk about the healing part as much as they talk about the trauma part.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So since surviving the shooting, have you connected with any other like mass shooting survivors, not only from the Aurora Theater massacre, but like any other incidents is for that matter?
Um, so sorry, one sec. Okay. Yeah, I actually met a guy from Theater 8. So like apparently the theater next door got like pretty hit pretty bad. And it was weird because like he was going to like every hearing, like the guy had like really bad survivor skill. And like at first I was like, this guy's kind of weird, like what's going on? Like I didn't know much about his story, but then we started talking and getting to know each other. And like now I consider him to be a really good friend. And I mean, it's really sad because there's a new shooting every single day. But like in the beginning, it was kind of like, you know, when Sandy Hook happened or this, like we would kind of like I would check in with him and be like, hey, buddy, are you okay? I don't know if you heard about this. Maybe don't look at the news today. Um, and so it's been good to have that like support system from someone who was also there and like understands, you know, kind of how it feels. Like somebody who was carrying some guy out of the theater who he thought was bleeding to death. And later, actually, he saw him at one of the court hearings and he was okay. And that was, I guess, really good for him to see. But yeah, I didn't really connect with a lot of the other survivors. I think a lot of people were just kind of like, I wish that I had known to not have a sprawling social media presence whatsoever before this happened. Um, you know, so, but a lot of them I think did just kind of go dark. They were like, this isn't, you know, they didn't want to really, I guess, interact on that level. So, which is fine. I think it's good. You know, you want to move on with your life, and that's cool. But it was, I guess, cathartic to meet someone who kind of knew how I felt and, you know, befriend them.
So if you had to give any piece of advice to a survivor of a mass shooting, not just a mass shooting, but like SA, domestic violence, anything like that to cope in everyday living, what might that be? What you would say?
So I mean, I dealt with like sexual abuse as a kid and like domestic violence as an adult and you know, like it's so I guess like I mean, it's kind of nightmarish that like that's, you know, the shooting's the tip of the iceberg, right? And that was such a big deal. But like I think that, you know, I learned a lot of ways not to cope when I was young. And then I don't know, I think people who think that they're untreatable or that they are what's the right word? Like they're just hopeless or a lost cause. Like I know what that feels like. And I always call that like terminal uniqueness. It's like I'm so messed up that nobody can help me. Like no one is this messed up. I know what that feels like. Um and so I think like my biggest advice for someone who's going through something like that, it's like I know it's so much easier said than done, but like all you have to do is pick up a phone. And I know we call it like the 1,000-pound phone sometimes because it's so hard to just pick up the phone. But like, for example, when I spent like 4 months with an abusive guy I'd moved in with a few years ago. And I texted my sponsor. I was like, I am terrified. Like, I will probably die, and she was like, pack your shit. And like, she just came and picked me up. It was like, I was Googling, like, am I a victim of domestic violence? And I was like, oh, duh. Like, the first thing on the list should have been like, if you're Googling whether or not you're a victim of domestic violence, you are probably a domestic, a DV victim. But, um, yeah, so I always tell people, like, I know it's so much easier said than done, but reach out, like, literally reach out to anyone. And if that first person can't or won't help you, like, reach out to the next person. Like, this is why in like AA, we like all give people our phone numbers. Like, there are probably 1,000 people who have my phone number and I don't care. I will keep giving it to strangers. I do not give a shit because I want to be that person that if someone is like, going down this list of phone numbers, what if I'm the one that is able to pick up and I could have made a difference for someone who is in a crisis, and that's their primary purpose. But yeah, so I just always tell people, I think that was a really wordy way of saying, like, just reach out. And if the first person or thing you reach out to doesn't help, then reach out to someone else. Or and I think also having an open mind and being honest and being like willing to, the how trifecta. Like, I think I had to be honest with myself and others, and I had to be open to healing, and I had to be willing to put in the work, which, is kind of a hard part. And it sucks that, like, when you live with a quote unquote mental illness, I mean, trauma is just a normal reaction to abnormal circumstances, right? But I mean, for the sake of whatever simplification, we can call it PTSD. Even though I don't know if it's a disorder. It's just normal reaction to me. I feel like if you have it though, right? Like, there's so many outlets for healing. And I kind of lost my train of thought there, but yeah, it's just reach out. Like, it's so hard to, but there's so many different things you can do to heal. And if something doesn't feel right, it's probably not, um, you know, not the way to cope with it.
So, if you had the opportunity, if you even wanted the opportunity to say anything to James Holmes today, is there anything you would want to say to him that would possibly help, like, give you closure on the case?
Um, I feel like with the victim's impact statements, like, we all really got to get everything out that we needed to say. And I feel like that was one of the many situations where I just don't feel like there's justice. Like, that's where I was kind of going about trauma earlier. It's like we have to serve a life sentence for something that someone else did to us, right? And it sucks that the burden of doing the work is on us, but like, unfortunately, it is, and it sucks. But for me, that's important to remember. And I also think that it does suck that there's no real like justice, right? Because this isn't a person who's going to feel remorse for what they did. And even if they did, or they suffered as much as any of us did, like, it wouldn't bring people back from the dead. Like, it wouldn't remove birdshot from my body. I'm a business owner. I don't get fucking paid time off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm stuck with the shit in my body, probably, for God knows how long. Like, I can't take time off to get surgery, but I really need surgery because there's buckshot lodge next to my spine. Like, that people are trying to adjust naturally, but it's not going to happen until they get the surgery to get it removed. And I'm in pain every day. So, I mean, I know there are like fans of his, like, just jerking off to that right now. They're like, they're horny for it. They're like, yes, screw her. But that's fine. I I really want all the homies to hate me. And like I probably said in an interview before, I hope every single one of the homies dies in a car fire. We're hoping for car fire. But for him, it's like there's really no justice. There's nothing you can really say. I don't think that gives closure. I do love that a guy from Ohio during the impact statements, I think one of the last things he said was like, hey man, there's no guns in prison, so good luck. And I like, everybody was like, oh, but yeah, I think there's really nothing you can say, except, I mean, the dude's like a cowardly loser. And I mean, he'd missed, obviously. Like the dude shot me like multiple times and I'm still here. So, I mean, I think if there was anything I could say to him, I would just say, you lost again, loser.
So does anybody else have any questions? Jen, Amy, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube?
Wow, we are everywhere. Awesome.
I don't see anything, and I don't have anything, but it's been such a great pleasure talking to you. You're fascinating.
Same. And honestly, I feel like if I was in that situation, I would probably still be a broken mess and you would be like my goals.
Oh, I think you know what too. I do want to say if anyone's listening and they are like a broken mess over something traumatic, like it's totally okay to be a broken mess.
Oh,
Grief sucks. Grief really sucks. Like I went through like a really big breakup like what, like a month or two ago or something. I like grief sucks. Like, and it was like, oh my God, it was like this broken sobbing mess over some dumb guy, and I was like, oh my God, like get up. Like get up, fix your crown, go eat something, please. And you've been through much worse. But I think like it's okay to be like a mess. I think that, these aren't normal things that happen to us. These are really messed up things. And there are some days where I wake up and was like, wow, nightmares, that was really cool. And there's some days where I just want to cry, and there's some days where I'm just so angry. And um, I think it's just about how we, what do we do with those feelings? Like lately, I write them down, and I think like if people are feeling like, oh my God, like why can't I do what this person is doing? Like no one's gonna be perfect, and we're all making progress. And I think that as long as we're trying and we're doing our best, like I mean that's all you really can do. What else can you do? And it's okay to be a broken mess. Like I think some days are worse than others and we get discouraged, but like it is okay to be a mess when something that shitty happens, because I mean it's terrible.
I totally agree. I think it's good to be a mess when you have to be a mess, but
Hmm.
also good to straighten that crown too.
Yeah, I think if we like ignore our feelings, like it just makes them worse.
Absolutely, because you're holding it all inside, so it's
Yeah,
like
powder
literally
keg.
just explodes. Yeah,
I think people who are like, "Oh, I'm totally perfectly well adjusted," especially after something like that happens, I'm like, I fear those people the most, because I like, does anyone like really fully have their shit together? You know,
no.
especially after
no, they
that.
do not. No, they do not.
Those are
No.
the people that tend to have the couple accounts on social media
Oh God.
and they put out there how wonderful their life is and how their children are perfect and everything else. And it's like, we know you're hiding something and it's okay.
Something dark too. It's like, ooh, they're gonna be on the next true crime documentary. Like, can't wait to see you on Netflix, because that's creepy. That's probably really dark. Sorry, but no, I like it freaks me out when I have everything together. I'm like, oh, you don't. That's not part of the human experience, is being perfect. I don't like. Maybe those are the reptilians. So
Mm.
I don't know.
Have you been to CrimeCon?
I have not.
Do you want to go?
I am not sure. I feel like I've been very like trying to distance myself a little from the. I have a lot of pages follow me. They're like, I sell true crime stuff. I'm like, I don't want to buy any of this. you
It's coming
know.
to Colorado next year, though.
Oh boy, that is going to be an interesting location for that. I do really want to visit Colorado again though, because I told my godparents I really want to go see them. They're so great. So if it's around the same time, maybe I'll drop by. But sometimes it's a little triggering too. Like I try to follow back a lot of these pages that follow me, and I'm like, ooh, I don't need all this pop up on my. Even if it's not related to the theater shooting, there's always something with like gun violence or rape or something, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's too much real life horror.
Yeah.
But it's something I would consider checking out probably.
Why did the live end on TikTok?
Uh-oh.
Oh, well.
I don't have enough TikTok followers to go live there. Like maybe I should just buy a couple thousand. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
I don't know why it ended.
We
It's
could probably. What's your TikTok name?
Oh, I have not been on it much, but it's Rebel Ghoul, like by like Rebel Girl, the song by Bikini Kill, but Rebel Ghoul. I think there's an underscore and then extra sauce. I think Rebel Ghoul was already taken, so I was like, oh, Rebel Ghoul with extra sauce.
let's
And
see.
spell ghoul.
Yeah, I think if you Rebel
Oh,
Ghoul
I've got it.
GHOUL underscore, and then I think it'll probably auto finish extra sauce. But
I'll
yeah, I
send
keep like downloading and deleting the app because I'm like, it's kind of a waste of time. And then I'm like, but I like making downloadable videos. It's fun, so I'll probably download it again once I need to get a new phone really bad. There's no space left on this one, and it's just like it's ready. It's ready to go.
I'm gonna go repost some of your TikToks,
Yeah, that'd be
and then
cool.
maybe do a TikTok asking people to follow you.
Yeah, I feel like I've also been posting a few more videos about like self-care in general, just kind of like coping and everything. And I try to like speak on those things in a way that's like authentic. I'm not like I don't want to hide anything, and I want people to, feel less alone.
I get it. I appreciate it. And I think you're doing a great job.
It feels good to hear.
As a matter of fact, the guy that I was telling you about last night, that I was talking to, we've been discussing how society tells, men, oh, boys are going to be boys, and they're not allowed to feel things and whatnot. And that's one of the things that we need to normalize therapy. We need to normalize that it's okay to be broken for a minute, and
Yeah, I actually like there's a guy on death row that I talked to because I was like, oh, I'm gonna start writing to someone on death row because they're just sitting there waiting for an expiration date. Who else are they gonna? Yeah. But, he was like, I want to go to counseling whenever, like, he's really trying to get that appealed and get out of there because it's, a silly situation. And I was like, yeah, you as like a man, especially an older man saying like, I want to go to counseling. I'm like, yes. Like, I feel like society is just like really patriarchal. And it's kind of like, oh, if you cry, like you're girly, you're crying like a little girl is always the saying, right? And it's like, if anything feminine is kind of like, low key like demonized in a way, and I'm like, no, like emotions like sadness are not exclusive to women, and like men are people too, and they have, we all have feelings, and sometimes they're big feelings, and we need to like find a way to reach out and talk about it, instead of like you said, like people are like, oh, boys will be boys, and like that should apply to like a kid playing in the mud rather than like, I don't know, someone like raping a woman and stabbing her 7 times. I want to encourage more people, and especially men who aren't as encouraged, like, to go to therapy and like reach out for help and get treatment for stuff. I think that's super important.
love that. Andrew?
All right. Well, I think we can let you go for now. We appreciate you coming on here, and like always, it's very fun talking to you, and I learn something new every single time.
Yeah, I said like I was like, this is the last true crime podcast I'm doing for a long time because it just feels like, I don't know, with Andrew, it feels like just sitting and having coffee and talking.
That's really
That's
what we
the
do.
idea. That's definitely the idea. It's like we're just kind of in the same room together talking.
Yeah.
We're just having a conversation. It's nice because I feel like, interviews I did for the news and stuff, it was just, tedious. It didn't feel like just catching up with an old friend or something.
Love that. That was the
It
goal.
was nice meeting you.
Yes.
Yeah,
nice
it was
meeting
good to
you.
kind of meet you guys. It's, always nice to meet new friendly faces.
And I have some people who are in the film industry too, by the way. So I sent you a friend request.
Oh, dope. Yeah.
Look you guys up.
Always looking to connect.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you, Rowan. We'll talk soon. I'm sure we'll be in touch over the next couple days or weeks or so, and let me know when your film comes out because I'm definitely interested in seeing it, and I do want to see Murderabilia wherever it is, if it's available anywhere.
Hopefully it makes more festivals, and I'll keep you posted. And thanks for having me.
Okay. All right, sweet. Thank you. Thank you again.
All right, take care, guys.